We continue sharing Gemara. Avos to Rav Nosson. Again, this is a Gemara that explains in detail the Mishnayos of Pirkei Avos. We come to a statement in the Gemara which is familiar, because this is found also in Gemara Masechta Gittin. The Gemara lists the qualities, the praises of the famous Tanoim. The Gemara says about Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was Oitzar Balom. Literally it means a closed treasure, which means a treasure that is not loose, it will not go lost. Closed to, in the sense that things will not fall out. They are drawers with solid walls, solid sides, that will contain the contents without danger of any loss. Gemara says, for example, why is Rabbi Akiva compared to this Eitzar Balum? For example, a worker who goes out and collects wheat, puts it into his sack. Then he finds oats, includes it in his sack too. Lentils, other vegetables, he throws them all mixed together in his sack. Looks like this person is very much not neat. Doesn't take care of his things properly, mixing things like that. However, when he comes home, he carefully makes a selection, places each item separately, immaculately. This was Rabbi Akiva. He went out, he went to the yeshiva, he collected. He heard a statement of Torah from one Rebbe, he put it into his mind, his brain. The second Rebbe, he added it. Each item that he heard, he recorded very clearly in his brain. When he came home, he began to review it, he began to select each topic separately, listing them in his mind, recording them in proper order, and of course, too, selecting those that were more important, giving them priority. This is how Rabbi Akiva learned. But the point is that he accepted everything. He absorbed whatever he heard quickly. His first thought was to absorb. He heard words of Torah, he listened carefully, took them in. Later, when he had a chance to think about it, to ponder this, to review it, then he placed each one in their proper perspective according to topics, according to halachas. Teshuva says on this Gemara that rather than learn a wording in the Gemara, Eitzar Balum, we should learn the word as Eitzar Balus, because the final mem and the samach look very much alike. The tiny little dot at the end of the samach changes it to a final mem. So the girsa should have been Eitzar Balus, because if you're going to say closed, the word Balus in Hebrew means closed more so than the word Balum, which could be taken as another word too. The Mefarshim say, let's analyze Teshuva's statement. What does it hurt if we accept a word that's in the Gemara already? It's there, it's a Balum. It means closed. So why have to change the wording in the Gemara? You don't change it unless there's a very painful reason. The reason why we just cannot tolerate this, we prefer something for a very valid reason. The answer given is that Rabbi Akiva is, in the Gemara, we find many times when he is in debate with other rabbis. The Gemara says, Halacha Rabbi Akiva, in most cases, the din is like Rabbi Akiva. Not in all cases. Not in all cases where he argues, is there any man like him? As great as Rabbi Akiva was, as great as Beis Hillel was, as great as anyone, Arizal, there is no one who has the halacha Moshe b'chol mokan, kemat. Everywhere, every statement that he makes, that's the halacha. In Gemara, we don't find it that way. Of course, there are cases like that there is a case which doesn't have to be mentioned even. It's understood. The case of the tzadik emes, his word is it. But when speaking about discussions, debates, controversies over halacha, then there are separate rules. Ground rules are different. You have the halacha kechachamim. Halacha is like the majority. No matter how great one is, the majority must rule. So there are cases where the halacha is not like any given individual kana. In this case, Rabbi Akiva's name is found in the Gemara exactly 564 times. 564 times. Of those times, in 375 debates, machlekes, the din is like Rabbi Akiva. He is victorious in 375 different machlekes. Therefore, Tesa says it would be more fitting, since Eitza Balus also means a treasure that is enclosed safely, securely, learn the word Eitza Balus, which is Begimatria 375. So the Gemara says Rabbi Akiva is a closed treasure. It's fit to say a closed treasure because 375 times the halacha is like Rabbi Akiva, Begimatria Eitza Balus. Further, the Mefoshim study Avos says that the story, we once discussed the story with Rabbi Derav and Hakenes, machlekes between Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai, and Rabbi Derav and Hakenes was asked his opinion. At that time, Rabbi Akiva and other Tanaim came to visit him. Corrections, right. He once spoke about this before. We stand corrected. The reason, contrary, let's clear that up before we go any further. The reason that the Gemara learns the word Eitza Balum instead of Eitza Balus, Tosfos says the Girsa should have been Eitza Balus, because Balus means closed more than does Balum. Why then does the Gemara learn Eitza Balum? Because Eitza Balum is Begimatria 375, due to the number of times the halacha is like Rabbi Akiva. So again, it's Eitza Balum, the Girsa in the Gemara, which is 375. The Gemara says that Derav ben Hakenes was approached by Rabbi Akiva's Rebbe's, and Rabbi Akiva came to visit him to ask the question about a certain halacha, in which there was a debate between Misham and Hillel. And as these rabbis entered, they introduced Rabbi Akiva, who was young at the time. But they saw this elder rabbi said to Rabbi Akiva, "Are you the Rabbi Akiva, whose fame has spread me seifa ilam vi'at seifa, from one end of the world to the other end of the world?" That was the wording he used. Fame has spread from one end of the world to the other end. Why use exactly that term? Again, because miseifa ilam vi'at seifa is begimatria 564, the exact number of times that Rabbi Akiva is mentioned in Shas. Now further, the Gemara says that Rabbi Isi ben Yehuda spoke about the descriptive praises of the Tanoim. He said about Rabbi Shimon, it is difficult in this case to determine which Rabbi Shimon he is speaking about. Very difficult to determine this, though the klal in Shas, general rule in Shas is that wherever Rabbi Shimon, the word Rabbi Shimon, the name of Shimon is mentioned, without saying Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, just Rabbi Shimon alone, and it refers automatically to Rabbi Shimon ben Yechoizah. The klal in Shas is Rabbi Shimon Stam, is Rabbi Shimon ben Yechoizah. Asher brings that klal. Others. So here Rabbi Shimon says about Rabbi Shimon would seem that, too, from the wording, that this would refer to the Shimon Yechoiza. We cannot say for certain, only saying that the wording seems to give it away. So he said, praise of Shimon is that he learns a lot and forgets a little. He absorbs a great deal, he forgets only a little bit. It's wonderful. A lot is gained, only a little bit is lost. There are some people, most people, of course, they learn a lot and they forget even more than that lot, which is also a great trick. Generally, at least they even it out. They forget as much as they learn. To learn very much, in this case very much, of course, means we ourselves cannot conceive of that very much, because those days there were oceans of learning. So the description about Shimon was, he learns very much and forgets a little. The Gemara says Rabbi Shimon met Rabbi Isi ben Yehuda, and he reprimanded him. Very angrily he said, how dare you degrade me in front of my colleagues, in front of the other rabbis? How dare you say that I forget a little? So Isi ben Yehuda answered, he replied, I didn't mean that. You actually forget. What I meant was that you drop. You learn a lot. Among that which you learn, there are some things that are not worthwhile retaining. There are certain opinions that are not in accordance with the halacha, minority opinions that don't count, and those you drop. So forget means that you drop them, you omit them, you remove them from your mind. You retain the vast majority of that which counts. The smaller amount you drop. This was his reply. Of course, it remains to understand this reply would be obvious. The Shimon surely knew that this would be the reply. Why then was he peeved at the original statement? The answer is, the Shimon held that he was irked at the fact that we consider every statement of the Gemara, even those that the halacha is not like them. Every word of any Tana, even when it is not in accordance with halacha, is still the word of Hashem. There is nothing to drop, nothing to omit, nothing to forget. If it's a word in the Gemara, if it's a word in the Torah, you're not to forget it. Halacha is something else. When you learn Shulchan Aruch, you select the one that you follow. But in words of Torah and debate, we know, as the Gemara says, that everything is the word of Hashem. Everything. So when you have a machlekes, for example, between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, and one says kosher, the other one says posel, it's permissible, mutter, the other says osir, it's forbidden, these are two direct opposites, two contrary statements. One of the two can be accepted. You cannot say that an item is both permissible and forbidden at the same time. It's an impossible statement. However, the Gemara says, since they are both the word of Hashem, it is possible. Because by Hashem there can be two statements, two opposites, yet both are true. Since Hashem says it, both are true. We cannot conceive that. Hashem has the ability of two opposites. Hashem can take fire and water, that are two opposites, two worst enemies, and merge the two and make friends. Hashem created the heavens. Above in heaven there is a machlekes of fire and water. Machlekes. Fire and water are two enemies. There's always machlekes between the two. This machlekes is l'shem shemayim, the sake of creating the heavens. Shemayim is a shemayim. So Hashem can have two opposites, both remain together. Therefore, it is possible for Hashem to say mutter or asr, which means some interpret to say the midas of chesed and gvura both merge, and you have this shemayim, a shemayim, that's chesed and din. In heaven, that is possible. You have tiferes, the beauty of the merging of the two, something which we cannot grasp. However, of course, the explanation is far deeper than that. We should not accept that as the explanation. The fact is that this is something higher. Hashem HaKadosh goes on further to explain Eila va'Eila. Eila is the Vav, Zaynapin. Zaynapin is Vav. The Vav, Zaynapin is called Eila. Eila, because the Vav squared 6 times 6 is Begimatria 36. Eila is 36. Now the Vav is the Elam HaYetzida, which means the Elam is parallel to, symbolized by the Mishnah. There are Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, 6 sections of the Mishnah, which we have Machlekes, and the 3-way Machlekes of Kosher Pasul, Tomei Toher, Mutter Asa. There are 3 possibilities of Toher, 3 possibilities of Tomei. These Machlekes, and you have a total of 6. You have the 6 on both sides. You can have a Vav as Kosher, Toher, Mutter, or as Tomei, Pasul, Osir. That's Eila va'Eila. Both the Vav on the side of permissible, and the Vav, which is also the Mishnah, also the Torah, also Saint Ampin the Fetus, that too is the same part of what? Divrei Elikim Chayim. Elikim is Bina. Bina is the mother who gave birth to K. The mother gave birth to the Vav, to Zeirampin, and Bina itself comes from Chachma. Elikim Chayim. Chayim is the Chachma. Because Ha-Chayim Bigematria Chachma. So since Eila va'Eila, both are Divrei Elikim Chayim. They are the words of Bina. The Torah, of course, is Bina. Let us come from Bina. So both are the words of the Torah, and therefore, ultimately, we can never say that we dismiss any opinion found in the Torah, the Gemara, or anywhere in the Torah, because no matter what that opinion is, it's still Divrei Elikim Chayim. It's still the actual part of the Torah and the words of Hashem. Why there is machlokes, how we can understand the combination of both, that's not our affair. It is the words of Hashem, and we are guided in what to do next. We are told how we should conduct ourselves, what we should do in case there is a machlokes, which one we should follow. We have these standard rules. Follow the majority or follow certain specific rules in determining halacha. Best one to follow, of course, is to ask. I have a question, I ask my Rebbe, and that's the answer. It's the simplest, the shortest cut possible. Or you look up the Shulchan Aruch, and you have our Rebbes in the Shulchan Aruch who have determined for us which din to follow. But not to dismiss any, and therefore this is what Rabbi Shimon complained about when he said you cannot state, even as a compliment that I forget, that I drop the smallest bit of Torah. Everything learned must be retained. The Gemara says further about Moshe Rabbeinu. The posek says that he killed the Egyptian. He saw the Mitzri striking a Jew. The Gemara says, Moshe Rabbeinu turned this side, this way, and that way. He saw there was no person around. No one was watching. And he killed the Mitzri. Of course, the Zayda Kodesh says that this is a case of poetic justice, revenge, avenging an act. Moshe Rabbeinu was the Gilgal of Hevel. This Mitzri committed 2 crimes. He saw what he did in the house and in the field. So the pasuk says, in the house, the fact that this Mitzri went to this Jew's house and took the Jew's wife, And then he went out to the field to kill the Jew. He attempted to kill the Jew. For this, Moshe Rabbeinu killed him. Zayda Kodesh says, we're not speaking about what this mitzvah did now. This mitzvah was the Gilgal of Cain. The crime he committed in a house, of course, Beisai Zu Ishtoi. The crime that he took the wife, the wife of Hevel, and then in addition he killed Hevel. Now he was being repaid by the Gilgal of Hevel. Moshe Rabbeinu was a Gilgal of Hevel, and he killed the Kayin that committed the crime. There are two parts to Kayin, of course. There's Toiv Shebe Kayin and Ra Shebe Kayin. The good part of Kayin came down as a Gilgal in Yisrael, the father-in-law Moshe Rabbeinu. The evil of Kayin came down as a mitzvah. So here, both of them received a tikkun. He killed this mitzvah, and with Yisrael, he also received a tikkun that Yisrael gave his daughter Tzipeda to Moshe Rabbeinu, which means Tzipeda was also that Gilgal of Hevel's wife, sister or wife. And Yisrael now returned. He gave back this wife he had taken to Moshe Rabbeinu, to Hevel. Here the Gemara takes it in Pashtius. Even in Pashtius too, the simplest form, the Gemara says, the posek says that he killed the Egyptian. What weapon did he use? Was it a 44 or 45? Or was it a switchblade? The answer is, the Gemara says, there was no weapon used except a word. Moshe Rabbeinu killed the mitzvah. How? First, the pasuk says he looked here and there and he saw there was no man around. Those words, he saw there was no man around. If there's no man, that means to exclude something else. There were others, but not men. The Gemara says that Moshe Rabbeinu called an assembly of the angels in heaven. He called them to assembly and he said to them, I want to set you up as a jury, as a court. I want your consent. You're okay. May I kill this Egyptian? The angels ruled as a court, and they replied, yes, you may kill him. Legally, you have a right to kill him. So, he killed the Egyptian with a word. He used a special word, one of the shemus of Hashem, one of the names of Hashem, which has the power to kill. This, the Gemara says, we see in the latest statement. I mentioned this many times previously. It's good to repeat it again since we are now learning the Gemara, which is actually said. Later, when he saw Dasan va'avidam arguing, and he said to one, Rosha lama sakereyecha, an evil person, lama sakereyecha, why do you strike your friend? And the reply was, Halavageni ato omer. Very arrogantly, he answered, do you intend to kill me, just like you killed that Egyptian? This was the reply to Moshe Rabbeinu. Now note the words, Halavageni ato omer. Are you going to kill? Are you saying this to kill me? Not do you plan or intend. Do you say it to kill me? Are you saying this word? Which word? When he said Lama Sakeh, the word Sakeh, Taf Chav Hey, is one of the shemus of Hashem, one of the Shemayim Beis, which used properly can kill an enemy. He mentioned this in the story of Purim, that Esther Hamalka, Vatikra Esther Hasoch, she called Hasoch. What was Hasoch? What's Hasoch? How does he come into the picture? This was a secret word. Let us Taf Chav Hey call upon his Shem, if necessary, to use the Shem to kill the enemy, to kill Haman or the enemies of the Jews. Also, of course, the enemies were defeated in Hanukkah and Purim, showing again that they were defeated through this Shem because Hanukkah, Purim, together, Begimatria, Taf Chav Hey, the Shem. Now, we see from here that when he said, are you saying this word to kill me just as you killed the Egyptian with this word? Moshe Rabbeinu said, then obviously this is known, and so So he decided to flee. Why did he decide to flee? Because note it says further, Yishma Parei es hadover hazer. Parei heard this thing. Again, this thing, this incident. Why does he heard this thing, this word? Answer is that the question arises, what happened? These are the Shem Dosan Vavidam, or very low base type, who were hated by everyone, surely hated by Parei. They came to Parei and told him, they told a story about Moshe who had killed an Egyptian. Now the question is, how could Parei believe them? How could he believe two people who were so despised against one who was his adopted grandson? He had been raised in the palace. He was liked by everyone. Basia's adopted son. Parei liked him. They admired him. Why should he believe the words of these two despised people? Which, of course, is a powerful question. The answer is that Parei, hearing this, became afraid for himself. He feared for himself that if Moshe has a power of this kind, where with a word he can kill, then what is the benefit of Parei's entire army? He has an army to keep the Jews in bondage, with which he could defend himself against any attack. But how could he defend himself against an attack of such unusual powers? Therefore, Parei decided that there was only one way in which he could be secure and safe. That was to kill Moshe Rabbeinu, rather than take the risk that some moment, in a time of anger, just by a word alone, he gets into a battle with Moshe Rabbeinu, battle of words. The word might slip from Moshe Rabbeinu to say to Parei, Tov Chof Hei, and that's the end of Parei's reign. He didn't want to take this risk, and so he decided to kill Moshe Rabbeinu. This is the story behind the story. Now you know what's behind the story. Mishnah says further that Elisha ben Avuya, during his good days, of course he later became known as Acher, he was the Rebbe of Rameya, but he said statements that were so famous and so outstanding, they remain under his name. Rather than change his name, the Mishnah quotes him under his original name, Elisha ben Avuya, who said that there are certain items that are very destructive. They can actually destroy a person physically and deruchni, spiritually too, Chas Hashem. One of those items, and how important it is for us to take note of this, though this was said about 2,000 years ago, close to 2,000 years ago, it seems that it was meant for our time. Perhaps meant for our vicinity, a lot of us here. Some kind of a hidden note. You could feel the words directed here. His first word for the most destructive force is Shena Shel Shachris, sleep of the morning, sleeping late in the morning. This can actually destroy a person. Shena Shel Shachris, the person is lazy. He's very lazy. The posek says, King Solomon says about that a lazy person lies in bed. He is comparable to a door on its hinges. A door on its hinges opens and closes. It moves quickly. It moves to and fro, but how far does that door travel? It will keep on moving miles, up and back, but never further than its hinges. A lazy person will turn over, wake him up, will turn over again. Just like a door, up and back, to and fro, but not further than the bed itself. And he's in that bed, and finally you ask him, why? Why don't you get up? Why don't you go out? The posek says in Mishlei, Shlomo says, Shachal Badera. I'm afraid. What are you afraid of? I'm afraid there may be a lion outside. There's a lion out. It's dangerous to go out in the road. There's a lion there. There's a lion lurking in the road. And therefore, it's better that I stay here where it's safe. A lion in this neighborhood? What color? Where do you see lions? The answer is that the lazy person will give any kind of excuse, no matter how ridiculous, how impossible, as long as to be able to remain in bed to sleep a little bit longer. This is so dangerous and so destructive that it could destroy a person physically. A person sleeping late could lose his parnasa, chas v'shalom. He's late to work, and of course he is dismissed. What is much worse is that beruchnius, a person sleeping late, could miss tefillah b'tzibur, could miss the minyan. And this means, of course, he misses the chance to hear Baruch Hu, which means that he misses the chance to retrieve, to get back his neshama, while asleep his neshama leaves him. In the morning, if he doesn't go to the minyan, even though he davens at home, says everything at home, the entire shachris, he does not get his neshama back for that day. So he walks around like a behemoth, like an animal all day, just as an animal has no neshama, just has spirit and life in him, so too does this human animal. Because of the fact that he was lazy, too lazy to get up a few minutes early to go to shul and daven. In addition, at times he may sleep that late, he may oversleep the Zman Kriyas Shema. The time of Kriyas Shema is at a certain given time in the morning. It is not late. He sleeps later, oversleeps that time. Mishum ben Arizal in the Gemara says he has committed a crime for which there is no rectifying it. There's no way to correct it. If you want to do tshuva, at best you may erase the sin. But what happens to the credit for saying Kriyas Shema that day? That's an impossible item to retrieve. Well, this is a crime that cannot be corrected. What is the correction then? The correction is never to let it happen. At no time ever in a person's lifetime should he ever allow himself to get up late, and that late that he misses his Kriyas Shema, or should he allow himself to daven with the arrogance and haughtiness of davening b'yachidus. The greatest gaiva, the greatest gas ruach is one who stands alone davening before Hashem. Because the heavenly court looks at this very, very angrily. How does this person dare to come to send his tefillah alone? Does he think that he is that worthy, his tefillah is to be accepted? And the Gemara says that the tefillah is dissected, inspected, scrutinized so closely until it's torn apart to bits. So therefore, this is the first item, Shena Shel Shachris, the sleep of the morning, is that evil that a person could lose both the Ruchnius and the Gashmius. Secondly, Rosenfeld says that the Shena Shel Shachris means, Shachris is the morning. Rosenfeld says that a person's life is divided into Shachris, Mincha, and Ma'ariv. Shachris means the morning, the early part of his life, the years of his youth. Later on you have the afternoon hours. The Mincha means towards the twilight of his life. Out of this is when the darkness sets in, the person leaves. His life ends. So the time to be very wide awake, and Nasan says, is dafka, specifically the morning, the shachas, the years of one's youth. Because if a person wants to be truly close to Hashem, truly serve Hashem properly, close to the tzadikim, he must be extremely alert, extremely religious when he's young. He must have a lot of reserve spirit when he's young. Add to whatever you have in Torah and Avodah, a lot of tefillahs, a lot of davening, a lot of avodah Hashem when you're young, so that some of it may remain for later years. You'll need it very much in later years because you slow down later on. You don't have enough reserve when you're young to find that it dissipates to a dangerous point of old age. So therefore, the Shena Shel Shachas, a person who sleeps away the years of his youth does not learn and does not spend the time davening, chas v'shalom, what will he have for his old age? His old age will be the very risky years. The Gemara says there was a story with Rabbi Akiva. You know that Rabbi Akiva had a youth that was comparatively empty, comparatively. We believe implicitly that his youth was much richer than ours, far greater than ours. But in ratio to his older age, until he was 40, he had learned very little compared to what he learned afterwards. Then, in fact, so little that he called himself an Amhoritz prior to that. The Gemara, though, tells us cases to prove that he did learn Torah, that he was, of course, naturally a Shem and Torah mitzvahs. He was very religious, even for the standard then. No person should ever speak about Rabbi Akiva, and this, again, is a very important warning. Whenever discussing Rabbi Akiva in his youth, there are some people who are prone to speak about Rabbi Akiva as one who did not know how to learn, as one who was low type chas v'shalom. They speak of Rabbi Akiva just using his name alone without the word Rebbe, chas v'chalila. This is definitely one of the most serious crimes ever possible to commit. Speaking about Rabbi Akiva, no matter what his youth was like, when we speak about him now, he is Rabbi Akiva. Never ever mention the name without the word Rebbe in front of it. The Gemara says one who does actually could lose his Adam Habit. It's like, Rosenfeld says it is like mentioning Hashem's name in vain. I see Hashem Lashav, mentioning Hashem's name in vain. This is mentioning a tzadik in a derogatory manner without the word Rebbe, chas v'shalom, so that surely we know how to respect the name of the tzadik. Rabbi Akiva, in his youth, only in ratio to his later years, was on a much lower level than he was later on. Gemara says that one time, while he was teaching his students, he suddenly recalled, they came to his mind a recollection of what his younger years was like. And he cried out, Baruch Hashem, that I was zecher to this. How fortunate I am that I was zecher to be sitting now in the study of Torah compared to what I could have been. That I continued where I was, as a shepherd, pure in thought, pure in action, pure in serving Hashem, but not a Talmud Chacham, not the level that I am now. How fortunate I am that I selected the path, at least the Torah, the Silo Hela base scale, rather than remaining as the others who did not, the others who went into business. He's cried out about this with a deep feeling of thanks to Hashem, that I was zecher to select the proper path. What I could have been, how fortunate I am now for what I am. And this is what a statement to made by Rav Nosson. Nosson, who lived through the bitter years during Rabbi Nachman's time, when there actually was machlekes against Rabbi Nachman. One of the leading rabbis at that time was Chilik, very strong against Rabbi Nachman. One of the elders, he was known as the elder Rebbe, and he spoke against Rabbi Nachman very strongly. He brought out a deep machlekes against Rabbi Nachman to the point where Rabbi Nachman one time demanded that the other tzadikim should put him in chaylim. It's a long story in itself. We'll have these stories later on in detail. Just to bring out one point about that case, though, that at that time, Rav Nosson Zal and Rav Naftali Zal were both very staunch followers, to be the closest followers of Rabbi Nachman throughout this bitter battle then, at that time. One time, Rabbi Nachman spoke to them, and he said to Rav Nosson Zal, imagine, look at those misnagdim who have taken up a battle, a war cry against me. They are chilek against me, and this is what they devote their time with. Imagine that this is what you could have been. And you joined them at first, you might have been one of those, Chas v'shalom. Rosenfeld shuddered at the thought. He actually trembled. Chas v'shalom, to think of a thing like that. But he might have been, Chas v'shalom, chilek. He said then too, Ashreinu, how fortunate we are. We were zechet, actually zechet, not to fall into the trap of those unfortunate ones, the snagdim, who went against the tzadik emes. The battle was tremendous. The Baldova, the Satan, set out as his prime mission of his existence to hide the light, the awesome light of the tzadik emes, which became known therefore as the Oid HaNe'olam, the hidden light that was hidden because of the shadow that the Satan cast over this. However, those few who refused to be blinded by the Satan remained implicit in their faith and their emunah in tzadik emes was zecher. This R Nosson said how fortunate we are, Ashreinu, that at least we remain pure and loyal to that Menachem. Zecher to have that emunah shlema. And this battle goes on in every generation. Each day there is always a dedication of the Satan to hide the light of the tzadik emes. That is one way we can actually recognize. It's a key for one who knows how to recognize the tzadik emes in each day. The days of the shvatim themselves, the machlekes among tzaddikim themselves against the leading tzaddik. When the shiftei koch, holiest ones alive then were the tribes themselves. They turned against the tzadik emes, their own brother, Yosef HaTzadik. That is inconceivable, impossible to understand how that could happen. The answer is this was the work of the Satan, who spared no effort in injecting these false thoughts into the minds of these tzaddikim, that it's a mitzvah to go after, to hound, to persecute this individual tzaddik emes, because they were misled into thinking that he was doing something wrong. And this went on in every generation. Sodom, the Dafoni Chinam, Governor Melech lived a life of being harassed from the beginning to the end. Always a life of being persecuted by others who thought they were doing well, thought they were doing a mitzvah. And still throughout the ages, the Baal Shem HaKadosh had so much machlekes against him that the greatest tzaddikim at that time, the leading posek in Shulchan Aruch, assembled one time to put the Baal Shem HaKadosh in chedim. It was through a miracle, through those that were very loyal to him, that they forced an end to this act. It did not go through. We see this is always the constant war of the Baldova, the Satan, against the tzadik emes, to hide the light of the tzadik emes, because if the light of the tzadik emes is revealed fully, this means the end, the final end to the Satan himself. In the case of Arizal, Rosenfeld sighed a sigh of relief, a sigh of thanks to Hashem that he was zecher at a time like that, in the thick of battle, to remain solidly, the tachlis emunah, the emunah in the tzadik emes of Arizal. We should be zecher to follow that pattern of emunah shlema, because that is the key during a person's lifetime and after a person's passing. A person is questioned first and foremost, to what degree did you have emunah in Hashem, in the Torah, and the tzadik emes? First question a person is asked, Sosov and Asata b'emunah. Your masum, your actions in life, the tribulations you went through, whether it was ruchnius or gashmius, was it with emunah shlema? A person is zecher to be able to say yes. That's the key to his victory at the heavenly trial. This is the key to the most important victory in heaven, to be able to come close to the tzadik emes there, because there too his emunah is tested. We should be zecher to remain solidly, implicitly, with emunah shlema and the tzadik emes, Arizal, throughout, and that emunah should be lo netzach, b'mazeh and b'lam habo. the schus of that Amunah, we should be zeichet to see now, coming Mashiach Tzidkenu, Binyan Beis HaMikdash Shemheda, Amen, Amen.
Clear Gemara, again with apologies for a case of laryngitis, but the words in the Gemara do not have laryngitis. They are very powerful, very strong words in the Torah Kedusha. Hashem says, like Eish, words of Hashem are like fire, fiery, and yet they are called the flowing waters of the Torah, Yam HaTalmud, the sea of learning, because they come from heaven, which is Shemayim, combination of the Eish Shemayim. The Gemara says, the last topic we had, the statement that there are certain things that could destroy a person, Chas v'Shalom. One we said was Shena Shel Shachris, the morning sleep. A person who sleeps late in the morning, the Chas v'Shalom lose out on his whole life. And this, of course, we explained too, means that these young years, he should not sleep away the years of his youth. The years of his youth should be devoted to Torah, to Avodah, to compile, to amass a lot of reserve Avodas Hashem that should do him good in his later years. The older years, they will not be that strong. Second thing the Gemara says now is Sichas Yelodim. Children's talk, juvenile talk. This means, Pshat, Gemara says, a person should not learn at home if he could help it. Mishnah Torah says that there is a special schar for learning Torah. There's a separate schar for going to learn Torah. Special schar, Hechel Beis HaMedrash. Beis HaMedrash is a place where you learn Torah. So there's Isa, means you perform the mitzvah of learning Torah in Beis HaMedrash. That's the mitzvah in itself. There's also the Schar Halicha, going to the Beis HaMedrash. Why? Why is there a mitzvah to go to the Beis HaMedrash? It would seem, logically, in truth, logically, it would seem that if even when we say there is a mitzvah in going, it cannot be as great as the mitzvah of learning. If we had to compare the two, let's say if one got the mitzvah of going, the second mitzvah of learning, we'd be compelled to say that the mitzvah of learning is greater. There's no question about that. That's irrefutable. In that case, then, why should there be a mitzvah of going when he could learn in his house? That 10 minutes or half hour of time it takes to go, you can have that time spent in learning. You can't learn while you're walking. So what's the mitzvah of going to Beis HaMedrash? The mitzvah is to stay home. Stay home and learn. Unless, of course, a person is going to a yeshiva, to a class, to a rebbe, but one learning by himself would seem to do better if he stay at home and learn. Well, let's say there are two people, two neighbors, and instead of learning in their home, they go to the Beis HaMedrash, they have schar halicha. Why? They stay home, the time it takes to go and to come, they could be sitting and learning, which is much greater mitzvah than going. Here we have the answer. The answer is Sichas Yelodim. Because there is the Sichas Yelodim, the interruption that comes about. There are factors that interrupt the person's learning at home. Yelodim means that his children are making noise at home. And when they make noise, of course, when the learning is stopped. It comes to a halt until this noise is set aside, until the children are put away where they cannot be heard. Or children get into an argument and the mother cannot handle it. Well, the mother says, "You're home now, good, take care of the children. I've traveled long enough all day with them, you're home, take over." So that each time, while learning, there's always that interruption which causes a disruption in learning, and instead of covering that prescribed period of time, a part of it, a great part of it, is wasted because of the Sichas Yelodim. Or Giborim, of course, can include a person's wife. He doesn't have children, and so what? He's got his wife there. That little kid, his wife, could do more to disrupt his learning than anything else. While you're home, you put this nail into the wall. Or while you're here, could you hand me this thing? I can't reach it. You're so tall. Pleasure to have a man around the house. Just take you a second. He wouldn't mind. Says to the neighbor, to his chavruta, of course I wouldn't mind. But what happens? Learning is disrupted. The time that it takes out causes a lack of flow of the mind, of the consistency of the learning, and this loses the whole time of learning. Therefore, means not just going to the Beis Midrash, it means going away from the house. That's the mitzvah. Get away from the house, away from the wife, away from the children, which will definitely disrupt the learning. In that way, a person has not just the sechar for learning, but coming to learn, but also the sechar for leaving his home. There's a special reward for a person leaving his home to go to learn, in addition to the learning itself. Now we understand the Mishnah in Avos. A person says who learns Torah, learns Torah alone. He learns Torah yet schar. Schar limud is b'yodei. He has a schar for learning. Both he goes and he learns. It's a chassid, which means higher than a tzadik. He is perfect. He has a schar for both. Because he has left a home, which is the greatest disruption of study of Torah, either for the wife or for the children. You cannot sit at home and learn in peace. That's impossible. Therefore, the Gemara says now, sichas yilodim. It's very cute to hear children talk, the chatter of little children. Very cute. But that could destroy a person's life, because if it takes away the time of his learning, which is life, sichas yilodim could take away a person's life. Chas v'shalom. That's why a person should avoid that at all costs. The Gemara says further, in Pirkei Avos we learn the description of how do we define a person who is a gibor, a person who is powerful. Speaking about physically powerful. Is it a person who can lift 500 pounds? Is it a person who can do 100 push-ups? Is it a person who can knock out another one blow? Or is it a person who can go into the thick of a battle and destroy the enemy? What constitutes the true definition of gibor? What is meant by physically powerful? The Mishnah Pirkei Avos says physically powerful is one who could wrestling match or battle not with a human but with an angel, with a malach. You can defeat a human, you're strong. But to say this is the gibor, heavyweight champion, does that mean only one person can be a gibor in the world? Every person is entitled to become a gibor. So defeating a human being is not considered a gibor. In fact, sometimes it's considered evil. You hurt a person. A person who is stronger than the second one, is he a gibor? If he strikes a person who's weaker than himself. A true gibor is that person who can overcome and defeat the malach, the Yitzhahara, the Satan within himself. That is the true definition of gibor. How do you defeat him? By self-control. If he places a taiva, a desire, in front of you, he tries to lure you into committing a sin. If you can control yourself, lower that fire desire, extinguish it. Not to commit that sin, it takes true power. That's the real meaning of gibor. That's what the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says. The Gemara in Avos says there's another definition of gibor. True. A person who is able to control his tigers, his desires, a person who is bechinas Yisrael, to wrestle with an angel and defeat him with the Satan Yisrael, is a gibor. Also, this has to work in relation with a human being also. When you take another human being and you overpower him, it does not prove that you are strong. Again, it might prove that you are evil. You're taking advantage of another person's weaker than yourself. How do we really test strength between two human beings? Real strength, real gevura. Only in the case of two people who are enemies. Person is your enemy. He has done something to harm you, whether physically, monetarily, or he has hurt your feelings. He has embarrassed you. And this enemy, you now turn around and you work on him to become your friend, to bring him close, to show an ahava, to show no desire for revenge, no desire to do to him as he has done to you, but to make peace, to convert an enemy to an ohev, to a friend. That takes tremendous kiruv, because there's nothing sweeter than vengeance. The person who's harmed, he will drop everything. Chaos itself, the anger that burns within a person, that fiery chaos and avodah zarah, is very difficult to control. The person who can take this vengeance and extinguish that desire and turn it into an ahava instead of a sin, instead of a hatred, that person is a true giver. This thing, I answer this statement. As we mentioned once, Rabbi Meir had a Rebbe whose name was Rabbi Elisha ben Avuya. Elisha ben Avuya later on became known as Acher, and he turned away from Emunah. During his previous period, though, he was so great a Talmud Chacham. Imagine being Rabbi Meir's Rebbe and being Rabbi Akiva's Chaver. So he once said, the most important thing, of course, becoming a Talmud Chacham is the study of Torah. You cannot become a Talmud Chacham without learning. You can't sit home and dream or sleep late and become a goin. You got to struggle at it, you got to study, you got to work at it. Besides the fact that every word you learn is a mitzvah, you also gain knowledge, which is a tremendous treasure, a fortune, knowledge in the Torah. Elisha ben Avuya said, there's also a danger. The words of Torah are a treasure. And they are not easy to come by. You got to struggle at it. There are many people who attempt to learn Gemara. They try for a while, they find it too difficult, and they just give it up, that's for sure. It's difficult, so they figure, we'll drop it. They forget about it. Which, of course, is a very tragic mistake. Because nobody said you've got to finish the whole Gemara, finish the whole Shas. It just says, learn Torah. Spend your time on learning Torah. If you can cover one page while the second person covers 20 pages, it doesn't matter. As long as you spend your time learning Torah, you get the same credit as the other person does. Learn with sincerity and give it all you have. It takes you longer. That's not your fault. That person, the person was born, was blessed with a better brain. So you're not to be blamed for it. You're blamed only for your lack of desire to learn. So the first thing then is hasmada, must be desire to learn, carry through, follow through and learn. Now, a person does follow through. A person does learn. He spends his time, he devotes his time on learning, and he spends years. And he spends 20 years' time. 20 years' time he spends on learning Torah. The average mind, in 20 years, could cover a lot of Torah. A lot of pages of Gemara, and Medrash, and Shulchan Aruch, even Kabbalah. 20 years is a long time to learn. Elisha ben Avuya says, there is another tragedy. A person learning 20 years then becomes lazy. He figures, it's like a person who bought a library. I've just accumulated a lot of books, a lot of sfar in my library. I have a very rich library now. I can now retire. I don't have to work anymore. So after 20 years, he said, I can start relaxing. I can stop learning. I have a lot of wealth of knowledge in my mind. So I can live on that. I can retire, live off my savings. This is not a savings. It's not a bank. It doesn't stay there. A person can spend 20 years' time struggling, learning very hard, accumulating knowledge, and then in 2 years' time, in less than 2 years, he can lose everything. A person who leaves the Torah, abandons the study of Torah, does not retain that knowledge. You cannot hold on to it. Because the minute you stop learning Torah, the minute you leave the Torah, simultaneously, the Torah says, you don't want me, I'm leaving also. The Torah begins to leak out. Deserts, it abandons this ship, this vessel, refuses to remain inside this person. So that it's like acquiring it is like acquiring gold. Losing it is like glass, very easily shattered, Chas v'shalom. A person will struggle, must continue to learn throughout every single moment of his life. The life of a person, the life of the neshama is the Torah, and just like you have to eat every day to sustain your physical body, you must learn every day to sustain the neshama, which is the life of a person. Also, Lisa Maruya added, the person who does a mitzvah, no matter what the mitzvah is, let's say he puts on tefillin, or he gives tzedakah. He gives a certain amount of money for tzedakah, he is credited with that mitzvah. On his record in heaven it says he now has credit, recorded one mitzvah for this person. Just that. But the person works on his friend, and he's ma'aseh, he makes that person perform a mitzvah, he makes that person do tshuva, he makes him put on tefillin, or he makes him give tzedakah where ordinarily he would not have given. He doesn't give tzedakah. Now two things happen. Himself, let's be honest, did it cost him one penny? He made a person give $100 for tzedakah. He did not spend 1 cent of his money. He just made that person give $100 tzedakah. Let's compare it, he says, to the case where he himself gave $100 tzedakah. Let's compare the two. He himself gave $100 tzedakah. He gets credit for $100 worth of tzedakah, that one mitzvah. He makes his friend give $100 tzedakah. He now gets two mitzvahs. Number one, it is as though created his friend at that moment. He becomes a partner with Hashem in creating that Jew, because at that moment the Jew was barren, devoid of a mitzvah. It's like there was no life to him. He created that Jew at that moment, so he gets credit for creating. He also gets credit for the mitzvah itself. So now he gets credit both for creating a Jew and the performance of the mitzvah. Much greater it is, that's a double kind of a sachar, greater than the act of performing the mitzvah itself, though, in effect, he did nothing. It cost him nothing. He has the mitzvah of giving this tzedakah plus creation. Benazai was also one of the chavedim at that time. There were 4 close chavedim, Yaakov, Mishma Avuya, Benazai, and Zema. Benazai stated that when a person passes away, the moment of his istalkus, the moment of his petita, he gives up his neshama, his soul, then it is possible to recognize by the way a person dies as to what mark he had, or what his record was in heaven. Each person dies in a different manner. For example, the person passed away because of, while speaking, he was lying on his deathbed, he was talking to those around him, and the words he was speaking were words of Torah. While speaking these words of Torah, suddenly he died at that moment, and as I said, it's a very good sign for this person. It's a sign that that person is recorded in heaven as a tzadik. That is good. A sign that his passing, he has gone to a place of good. He's being judged in heaven for his schus. But if the person passes away while speaking words that are not Torah, speaking about business matters, his last will, speaking to his family about what to do with certain items of business matters, straighten out, to finalize certain things, debts that he has, it's business, this is not a good sign. A sign that this person's neshama was not that pure, therefore he ended his life with words that were not holy. And this is the way a person can recognize, only a person himself, the moment of his passing, sort of a quick flash of what his whole life, what the final tally of his life is. As I say, there's another sign of recognition. A person passes away. At the moment of his passing, he is in a happy frame of mind, simcha, and it's a very good sign. A sign that the neshama has livened up. The neshama is vibrant. It's full of life. It's going to a place where the neshama will be happy. If, when he died, it was in a time of depression of mind, depressed state of mind, or he was crying at the time, crying with bitterness, it's not a good sign. Chas v'shalom is not a good sign. It shows something is wrong with the neshama. Now, how can we explain that? Actually, after all, wouldn't it be logical that every person, when he's dying, is more or less will be suffering physically? In most cases, we'd say he's suffering. He doesn't die out of great joy. So at a time of physical suffering, what would he be doing laughing at that time? What's funny at a time like that to laugh at? Especially if his mind is lucid, it's clear at that moment, he sees the family standing around, and the family would be crying bitterly then, or trying to control their tears. How would he be smiling or laughing at a time like that? What would he bring about a smile? And then, if he's crying, what's wrong with the crying? It's only natural, normal. But better still, the person's about to die, he says Shema Yisrael, the greatest kedusha of all, Shema Yisrael. He says it with Mesiras Nefesh, by giving his soul over to Hashem, Mesiras Nefesh. That's like dying out to Hashem. Could be a bigger mitzvah than that. The Akiva was nostalgic with the word Shema Yisrael Echad. The answer is, the Mefarshim say, there's a posek, Hashem said, Ki lo yir'ani ha'odam v'choy. Hashem said, no person can see me, can see Hashem. It's impossible to see Hashem. Of course, to see Hashem is impossible. No person could see the Shekhinah, could see the Spirit of Hashem. It's an impossibility. No physical being could see the Shekhinah. How about the Neshama? After a person passes away, is it possible to see the Shekhinah then? Even the Neshamas can even see the Shekhinah. So note that pasuk says, Ki lo yed'ani ha'adam v'choy. In Fedish, it says in the Chumash, a person cannot see me and live. But die, yes, it is possible. It is fact that the Shamas, after their darkness, see the Shekhinah. In fact, we see that certain tzadikim in their lifetime. Yecheskel, the mother Yecheskel, they saw the Shekhinah. The tzadikim Amitim, Moshe Rabbeinu saw the you see the back, Kaviyach, there is no back by Hashem. He's the Kesher Shel Tefillin, Kaviyach Tefillin of Hashem. Isaiah Kodesh says it refers to the Shekhinah, the upper Shekhinah, the lower Shekhinah, which Mishnah saw during his lifetime. But normally, a person was not that great. Normal person is a tzadik. So the guy the other Hashem says a person cannot see me if he's alive, but if he passes away, he could. Therefore, when does a person see the Shekhinah if he's good? The second, the moment he passes away. So we can detect, because imagine, as Isaiah Kodesh describes, when a person passes away, usually there is a reception committee. If he is Chas v'Shalom a Rasha, they are waiting for him, and he's not offered to take him to his punishment, to whatever his sentence is, meted out to him. If he is a tzadik, then we have the neshamas, the tzadikim would come to greet him, to welcome him with the Shekhinah. Shekhinah is there. Take this person, tachas comfort, tachas al kamfei Shekhinah. That means at the moment that a tzaddik passes away, he sees the Shekhinah. Can there be a greater joy part of a person in seeing the Shekhinah? So if we see that this person, although this petita is passing away, has a smile, there's a smile on his face, that means that he is definitely a tzaddik who has just seen the Shekhinah at that moment. And therefore we see, noteworthy, that in two cases, more, but at least these two cases we have very clearly, explicitly written black on white, very clear. The Zohar Kodesh says that the Abba, the Sefer, the one who wrote the Zohar Kodesh, who was present at the Idna Zuta, present at the moment that the Menachem Mendel Schneerson was Mistalik. He described the Estelkus, described that Menachem Mendel Schneerson was speaking. Speaking what? Words of Torah, words of service of Kabbalah. He was speaking and he was saying a posek, and that posek he got to the word chayim, life, he stopped. He stopped, and that second his neshama was Mistalik, neshama left. The Avos said, I waited because I couldn't look up. The house, the room was filled with flames, fiery, heavenly flames. Shekhinah was there. We couldn't look. We waited in fear and in awe. We heard many voices, sounds, sucking from heaven. The word chayim, life, constantly going. Ringing through the room. Until finally the fire subsided slowly. Then we looked up. We could see the Menachem Mendel Schneerson lying on his bed, his couch, lying peacefully with a smile on his lips. It's the word of Rabbi Aharon, who wrote the description of the Estelkus of Menachem Mendel Schneerson. Smile on his lips. This time, the second time, the Arizal describes the Estelkus of Rabbi Nachman. Arizal stood by, was there at the time of Rabbi Nachman's Estelkus. Two, he describes the Estelkus was a Nisas Neshika. Neshika is the kind of Estelkus Moshe Rabbeinu had. Kaviyachol, the kiss of Hashem, which grew out of Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama. Arizal says Rabbi Nachman's Estelkus was Nisas Neshika, and he saw after his Estelkus, Rabbi Nachman lying there too with a smile. This is what the Nasan meant. Why is a smile a good sign? Because surely it was the Shekhinah that received the neshama as it left the body of the tzaddik. Therefore, the smile on the face of the tzaddik. This is what is considered a good sign. In addition, there are two more signs. Not in the person, but the time. The time of the Estelkus. The person passes away on Erev Shabbos Kodesh. It's a very good sign. It's a sign this person is very worthy. Because he's a Stoic Friday, he's going right into the Shabbos Kodesh. There is no Gehenna Shabbos. The Neshama goes right into the Shabbos Shalassalava, Shabbos of heaven. Right into Gehenna for Shabbos. The person who's nostalgic might sorry Shabbos Kodesh. Just after Shabbos ends, he's got a whole week to go through difficulties that transpire with the Neshama in heaven before getting to the Shabbos Kodesh in heaven. This, of course, means, in essence, it means, good sign is that person who's nostalgic Erev Shabbos. Erev Shabbos means that he has prepared himself. The days of the week refer to Elam Hasa, this life. Shabbos Menucha refers to the future life, Gan Eden, Elam Haba. Erev Shabbos means a person who has spent the whole week this world preparing. Now he's ready. He comes prepared, he's taking along enough supplies to last him there. Enough Torah, enough mitzvah, enough blessing Torah, actually to that person who comes prepared with these supplies for Olam Haba. That person who passes away by Tzori Shabbos Kodesh, he has nothing of any accomplishment during the week. This life, he has nothing with which to come to Olam Haba with. That person is in a pitiful state. And so too, if a person passes away Erev Yom Kippur, it's a bad sign, Chas v'sholom. Because before Yom Kippur, all his sins are there. And at that time he passed away before Yom Kippur came to cleanse himself of the sins, to sign that somehow he is not wanted. They don't want his neshama to be clean when it comes there. He's not fit to have a cleansing here. He'll have to pay for it there, Chas v'sholom. The person who passes away just after Yom Kippur, before Yom Kippur, it's an excellent sign, because he comes to heaven completely cleansed, to sign this person a tzadik. Now to this, of course, we must add something which I mentioned a few times before, but because it's so poignant, so actual an item reference to ourselves, pays to repeat it, must be repeated, it must be indelibly impressed in our minds. First place, I recall, now, as a child, I suffered with this Gemara. I literally suffered. I learned this Gemara as a child. This Gemara is, of course, in Chassidut also. And at that time, before I was bar mitzvah, I had a Rebbe who was very, very, very great going, Talmud Chacham, tzadik. My own grandfather was shown, Zecher Tzadik Avrocha, who was at that time the Rebbe of the Chavruta Shas, who taught the elders of the community, and who himself was a tremendous Talmud Chacham. He learned Shas, Bavly, Yerushalmi many times. He was going in his own right, and I was Zecher that he was privately, he taught me. He was nostalgic before the mitzvah. He was nostalgic, Nasan Yimei Tshuva. Nasan Yimei Tshuva means before Yom Kippur. And I could not follow at that time because of the tragic circumstances. I couldn't listen to the drushes, the eulogies, the hesped said then at the funeral. I just caught a sentence. I couldn't hear the rest. The sentence was, the Gemara says, Mace, Erev Yom Kippur, person dies before Yom Kippur, it's a bad sign. I did not hear the explanation, what was said about that, how that kasha was answered. Speaking about a great tzaddik, which is dying before Yom Kippur, what's the answer? And I remembered that, it stayed in my mind. Somehow, I was too ashamed to ask this of my father or someone else, because it would seem like I had suspected something being wrong. So I walked around with that painful thought in my mind, how come that my grandfather was nostalgic before Yom Kippur when the Gemara says that it's not a good sign. Later years, I found the answer. I started going to Arizal Sforim, I found the answer so clearly. The Gemara says there are 3 Sforim open on Rosh Hashanah. Sefer of Tzadikim, Sefer of Yeshayim, Sefer of Benedim. 3 books in heaven. All 3 are listed separately. The Tzadikim, Gemurim, are immediately inscribed and sealed in the book of life. The Yeshayim Gemurim immediately inscribed in the opposite kind of book. Benedim, middle of the road, they are left suspended. They're given a chance during the days of Teshuva. In Kippur, they prove themselves with Teshuva, then they are inscribed in the book of life, otherwise not. And we now know there are these three categories. Arizal said, with me, the main day of the year, the main Yom Tov of the year is Rosh Hashanah. Above all other holidays is Rosh Hashanah. The Tasha is why. If Rosh Hashanah is only the beginning of the Aseret Shemei Teshuva, it's only the first and second day of Aseret Shemei Teshuva. As you go along, these correspond to the 10 Kedushas of Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael till you go to the Kodesh Kodeshim, which refers to Yom Kippur. The highest Kedusha, the Kohen Gadol goes into the Kodesh Kodeshim. So why, logically, shouldn't the Arizal say, the holiest time is Yom Kippur? If this era, this period of time is the most important time of the year, more important than other holidays, why not say Yom Kippur? The answer is, the Arizal says the most important time is Yom Kippur, of course, no question about it. But there's a different date for each person. For a Beinoni, ordinary person, Yom Kippur is at the end of 10 days. When he is suspended, he must prove himself in those 10 days. For a Tzaddik Gomor, the first day, he already has all 10 days included. In Rosh Hashanah, he has written and sealed. Because his Yom Kippur is already in the first day. He doesn't have to go for the 10 days of waiting. So therefore, by a Tzaddik Emes, Rosh Hashanah is Yom Kippur. He already is sealed for life. There's no question about him having to wait. He is Nichta v'Nichta. This is the answer. And for those who are tzaddikim, if they die Erev Yom Kippur, Erev who's Yom Kippur? Yom Kippur of a Rosh or a Beinoni? The Erev Yom Kippur of a tzaddik, and their Yom Kippur is Rosh Hashanah. If he was nostalgic after Rosh Hashanah, this tzaddik, surely Simon Tovloi, because he was already Nichta v'Nichta, the Sifra on Shal Tzadikim. It was already described in the book of Tzadikim. This, of course, Rav Nosson says with Fedish, applies not just to the Tzaddik Gomer himself, to the Tzaddik Emes. It applies to any person who is attached to, with the Emunah Shlema, that Tzaddik. Tzaddik Emes is inscribed with all his followers. On the Shoshana is inscribed together with them. If what Aharon said, the most important thing you can ever do is come to me for Rosh Hashanah. Come to me for Rosh Hashanah, I'll do for you more than I could do for you during the rest of the year. So again, we say Erev Yom Kippur, we now know the meaning of this word. Erev Yom Kippur, depending upon for which person we're speaking about. So Erev Yom Kippur is a rough sign before, like so Yom Kippur, Yom Kippur is over. For Tzaddik Emes, it's over with Rosh Hashanah. At Tzaddik Emes, of course, it's a Simon. Then Arizal says further, another item that relates back to something similar to what Menachem Mendel said, but in a different vein. Mitzvah giving tzedakah, at times the person gives himself, at times he's approached to give. There's a gabbai of tzedakah, collector, who comes around and tells him we need money for a specific purpose. We have to build a mikveh, or we have an orphan who's getting married. It's a mitzvah, chassidut kala, the very big mitzvah at hand. We need money, we want you to give, to contribute some money to this. The person offers resistance, and the gabbai begins to put pressure on him. It pressures the person. How much can you give? He says, I'll give you $10, and the gabbai says, no, I want 50. They settle for 25 or so. The pressure is put on by the gabbai, or in a case of an appeal in a shul, they make the appeal, and they force each person to give. And as I says, be wise. Be very wise. When it comes to tzedakah, quickly, before the gabbai or others have a chance to put pressure on you, you contribute to self. You speak up, make the pledge, make the offer, make the contribution, and receive schar for it. Why should you let them pressure you and they get the schar? What's the good then? They pressure you, what happens? They may asa, they force you, they make you do the mitzvah. They have created you, they have made you do the mitzvah, they get the credit for creating you and for giving the money. So Nazai now approaches the person who has been made to give and advises him. Mishnah Abuya said, if one will make somebody else do a mitzvah, gives the credit for that mitzvah, credit for creating that person. And as I says, that person now, wake up. What do you need that for? Why do you have to have somebody else take all your credit? Or take equal credit, or whatever is to diminish the value of your mitzvah by, because you have to be forced. Carefully say. Best thing is, before they start pressuring you, to not voluntarily speak up, contribute to give, and take the whole mitzvah for yourself. Earn the dividends yourself. Don't have to share it. Don't have to subtract from it because you were forced into the mitzvah. Secondly, and as I says at the same time, if you do this, you say to yourself, well, what do I gain? I get the mitzvah myself. But if I'm doing it, why can't I get the credit that person would have gotten by making me do it? Why don't I get extra credit too if I beat him to it? If I beat the guy, I do it, give it myself. And Allah says you do, because if there is an appeal, for example, and you rush to be the first one, you call out a good-sized sum, what happens is that you'll force others who would not have given to give also. Not fit. Let's say your neighbor gave, you're not going to give. It's impossible. A man comes home and says, his wife says, what did you do today? You had an appeal in shul. I hope you didn't give, she says. He says, well, I did. Some wives are like that. I'm not speaking about Rav of Breslov wives. Speaking about the other kind. And she says, how much did you give? And he says, I gave $50. $50? How many times I ask you $50 for a dress, for a coat? In shul, just like that, you get $50. Why can't I make an appeal like that to you? What about charity at home? Why did you get $50? He said, well, our neighbor next door gave $50. What would it look like if I didn't give? They'd say, there's the good one, there's the cheap one. I had to give already. Now they says, you call out first. Now you're calling out, you'll force other cheapskates who would not have given to give too. So it's not just your mitzvah of giving, you get credit automatically for many who give on your account. This is where a person is wise by being quick. Another bit of advice, but as I says, is, final word is that watch out for covet. Watch out seeking honor. You know, when you come to a place, meeting place, shul, they have the seating arrangements are that the closer to the front wall, the higher the position. Person, some who like to get into the shul, they run right away to the front wall, grab the seats, sit up front. Face the people, they're the big shots. Covered the Mizrach wall. There are some who are very modest, they sit back. And as I says, be smart. You go into shul, don't go to the front wall. Go to the lower place, whatever you're worthy of, third row, fifth row, go 2 rows lower than that. Rather than to go higher than that. Because what's the result? If you go to a place higher, people come over who have the audacity to tell you you're sitting in the wrong place, get down. It's very embarrassing to be told to go down. Isn't it much better, much warmer, richer feeling? They walk over and say politely, this is not the place for you. Go up. Go up 2 rows. If you take a lower place, you'll have the pleasure of being told, sir, go up. You're fit and worthy and more covered, rather than have the embarrassment of being told to go down. First thing a person should do is always go to a lower place than you think you deserve. Arizal says that don't go higher than your place. Right, tachto, sit lower. you go lower, that's true anivus, you'll be zecher to that, through that, to true kavod shemayim. We should be zecher to be marbe kavod shemayim, marbe kavod tzadik emes, zecher to true emunah shlema, in Hashem, the Torah, the tzadik emes. The schus of that emunah we should see now, with our eyes.